Whether you like rules light RPGs or you want something a little bit more involved, there's one thing that they have in common. I'll tell you what it is. Stick around. Hi, folks. Old Man Grognard back. And today I wanted to talk to something that goes to the core of role playing systems. I know there's a lot of people who, the camps of simpler versus more complicated or crunchy, old school versus more recent games. I've been in both. And at this point in my life, I prefer the simpler ones. And this is mainly going out to the newer players, because a lot of them have started with like D&D 4th edition or even 5th edition now, which is a lot easier. But like, they started, say they started with 3rd edition, 4th edition. Those rules get a little, I'm not going to say complicated, but they kind of, they have to have, it seems like you have to have ruling for every instance. And I'll tell you why you shouldn't. For one, it's impossible. And two, that's not really the spirit of cooperative storytelling as far as I'm concerned. I struggled with this for a while, and right now I play old school stuff. I play Tunnels and Trolls, but I've also played things like Champions, which can get kind of involved. In fact, that's what tipped me off about this. Originally, I started going back to things like Dungeons and Dragons, because I had a couple of games, and it wasn't the game as far as I'm concerned. It was the players, because it's like there was a rule set written. I mean, this goes for hero, this could go for GURPS, riffs, whatever. There were a lot of people back there in the 80s and 90s that I got kind of frustrated with because they would take everything as gospel. To me, it was kind of like anal retentive role playing. It got to the point where, well, I'll give you an example. The thing that broke it for me was two things. I was trying to play Fantasy Hero. I'm basically playing D&D and Fantasy Hero, and I created something like creating a beholder with points. Too expensive, And I said, well, why do I have to worry about this? And look at all these spells I have to worry about the point cost. Why don't I just go back? But the thing that really did it for me is I played in a Champions game with a few friends, and my friend had a superhero who was a what do you call a cloak fighter. He had weighted cloaks. He had weights in his cloaks, and he would do stuff like spin it around and do like a sweep attack and things like that. He bought it that way. Okay. I mean, he bought regular attacks. He could slant. You can, a ranged attack, swinging at somebody or something like that. But we were dealing with some bad guys, and there was a sniper on the roof. And he goes up there, since he's kind of a dark character anyway, blends in, Batman type. And he says, and he does a sneak roll, and he says, I want to walk up and fold up my cloak and take one of the weights and just knock him out. The first thing the game master said was, well, did you buy it like that? Well, no, I bought an area effect. Then you can't do it. And they had a good 10-minute argument about it. And that's opened my eyes about a rule for everything. And getting into the OSR, the same way, old schools. And it not hit me on the head, but I finally codified it I found something that really hit the nail on the head from the Deluxe Tunnels and Trolls. And this is on page 153 about, game master advice, things like that. And they wrote, we trust you to use your heads when the rules do not address a particular situation. That right there is the key to the whole thing. Okay? Goes back to, this is cooperative. It goes back to when I tell the GM, I said, you set up a framework of a story. You don't put every board and nail, you don't cross every T and dot every I, because the players have to have room to do their thing. And plus, they'll think of things you never thought of. So you set up a framework of the story because it's cooperative storytelling. Yes, you came up with the frame, the premise, the world, things like that, but they're the characters in there. They're the characters in the story, and they will do what the characters will do, given their characters, and you have to make a lot of room for that. And that's why rule books can't nail down every single thing that a player will do. As the old saying goes, there's no such thing as something that's foolproof because there's no such thing as something that's foolproof because fools are awfully creative. And I'm not saying they're fools, but you get the idea. Anyway, so what they're saying is basically, if you can't figure out, if it's not in the book, make a ruling. Make a ruling right there. And it can either stand after the session, or you can decide it doesn't work and throw it out, or sit down with the players and say, okay, I said this and I did this. What do you guys think of going forward with this as a new rule? And things like that. Because I guarantee you every game you're going to be doing at least one of those, something like that, at least once. Probably more than once. Lord knows I've done it more than once. Because they ask, hey, if I can do something, well, you're the game master. It's either yes or no. Now, and if you remember back in the wargaming era, it was called the referee. And it's still a referee. I mean, how many times have you watched a sports, say a baseball game, and people get mad at the umpire's calls? Same thing. You make the call to the best of your ability. Either they like it or they don't, and if they don't, afterwards, you can talk to them. You maybe change it, maybe change your mind, but you got to stick to your guns at that moment because it's cooperative storytelling. If one of the players gets behind the screen, same thing for them. They make the decision, they make the call. And a book cannot tell you everything you're supposed to do. If somebody falls 30 feet into the ocean, over 30 feet, now 30 feet is terminal velocity, now hitting the ocean, will that kill him or will he drown after he hits? That's your call. So 30 miles per hour terminal velocity. Yeah, that's right. So that's what you got to keep in mind when you're running a game. And that's pretty much all I had this time. So if you want to talk about it, if you want to talk to me about it, I'm at oldmangrognard@gmail.com. I know this might be a little incendiary, but hey, that's what I'm here for. So until next scene, and I also don't talk very well. Till next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.